Hello, everyone, and thank you for listening to Special Reports with Jessica Ariel Morocco. I'm here. We're going to get pretty deep in and discuss some of the issues that are happening regarding Chaz and some of the protests, some of the agendas, and of course, some of the people that seem to have a voice of reason in a day where it seems like nothing is making sense. We'll be covering some of the topics regarding defunding the police and the Black Lives Matters. So I'm going to start off with this gentleman. He seems to really be very rational, and that's kind of refreshing because we're not seeing a whole lot of rationality as our world had turned upside down, and moments of insanity in harming innocent people and many of the innocent people that have died already, and of course the chaos. And we all know that this is, triggering. This is MK Ultra. This is the agendas. This is an effort to destroy some of the nations around the world and privately funded efforts. However, many people actually believe that this is a cause or have inserted some other issues that were harmful or wrongdoings in the past and kind of mixed it in with some of the manipulations and propaganda, not realizing that that's what they were doing. And I think their voice would have been heard even better had they not aligned with some of these Marxist behaviors to not just to support a race, but to take down a nation. And that's really the true intention of it. And whether people want to take part in that, it's unfortunate if they don't see the difference. So, but this gentleman, I'm just going to let him speak, and you tell me what you think about his discussion here, or his point.
Hey, greetings, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, Senior Fellow at the Media Research Center. I just got to ask, what is going on in the United States of America right now? In the 59 years of my life, I would have never thought that I would see what is happening in America, where we have these anarchist groups, where we have these Marxist groups that are running around rampant all over the United States of America, ripping down our monuments, ripping down our memorials, and basically undermining our constitutional republic. And yet we sit paralyzed, not doing anything about it. No one is standing up and discussing the absolute absurdity of what is happening in the United States of America. And think about it. We have these two organizations, one of them Antifa, which has been designated as a terrorist organization, a domestic terrorist organization. You know what that means? That means that every single person that is donating money to Antifa, now you are in violation of U.S. statute and code. You are providing material support and comfort to an enemy. You are aiding and abetting a terrorist organization. So why is it that we are not cutting off the resourcing? Why are we not freezing the accounts of people that are providing resource support to Antifa?
Right.
When I look at this autonomous zone that has been set up in Seattle, Washington, all of a sudden, these young people are coming up with weapons and ammunition and things of this nature. Well, let me tell you something. I just recently finally got the clearance for a tax stamp for my 1945 45 Thompson short barrel rifle. It took me almost 10 months. Now, I'm a law-abiding, legal, gun-owning American citizen. I'm a former member of the United States House of Representatives, a 22-year veteran of the United States military, retired as a lieutenant colonel. And it took me almost 10 months to get a weapon that I legally purchased. How are these weapons showing up in the hands of these young anarchists in Seattle? And where is the BATF? See, I remember back some time ago when the Tea Party, a constitutional conservative grassroots movement, arose. And yet the power of the federal government was unleashed against them. The IRS and other agencies, they were beaten down. Everyday Americans had their privacy invaded, their lives assailed. But yet we can't do anything against a designated domestic terrorist organization. And now we see what is happening in our nation's capital, where they now have gone onto federal land and attacking another monument to one of the presidents of the United States of America. And we're just sitting around idly doing nothing about it. And I'm tired of this Black Lives Matter organization. They don't care about Black lives. They have admitted that they are a trained Marxist organization. And that's who they are. And when you think about Marxism, it is a philosophy that is the antithesis of who we are in this constitutional republic, these United States of America. I understand freedom of speech. I understand freedom of expression. I understand people having the right to be able to believe in whatever political ideology they wish. But when you are seeking wholeheartedly to undermine our nation, that's called sedition.
Right.
And we need to deal with that appropriately. And when you consider the corporations and businesses, over $460 million that have flowed into the coffers of Black Lives Matter, those funds need to be seized, because Black Lives Matter is nothing but a lighter version of Antifa. It is also a domestic terrorist organization. Now, why is it that so few people are standing up and saying these very simple, true facts? Why is it that we're so afraid of standing up to these organizations? Why is it that we're going to sit around and allow this, what we see happening in America, to happen on our watch? This has to end. President Trump, this is a leadership moment. This is not about worrying what the New York Times, the Washington Post, or any of the other leftist media outlets are going to say. Because we here at the Media Research Center, we track what the leftist media does, and we know their hypocrisy. But it is time for us to stand up. Stand up for the rule of law, and not be forced into surrender to the rule of the mob, because that's really what is happening. If you want to compare what is going on in the United States of America to any other period in history that we can pretty much so recall right now, this is the mid-1930s in Germany.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
These groups are no different from the SA, the brown shirts that used to roam the streets. What we see happening in America is no different from Kristallnacht that was going on there. And when you consider how they are trying to undermine our Judeo-Christian faith heritage and all of the traditions and the principles and the foundations upon which this nation was established, this is an ideological civil war. This is a cultural battle that we're in, and we cannot afford to lose this. I'm out here in El Paso, Texas, and I met a couple last night from Poland, and they came up to me and they said, "Colonel, we came here because we believed in America and all that it stood for. How is it that America is going in the opposite direction? It's time for us to turn into the wind. It's time for us to face this challenge. It's time for us to shut down this anarchist and Marxist groups that we see roaming across our great nation. It's time for us to find our courage, our conviction, our commitment, and our character." Let me close by saying this. On 31 July 1982, I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, to bear true faith and allegiance to the same. I took that obligation freely without any purpose of evasion or mental reservation, so help me God. That oath has no statute of limitations. Antifa, Black Lives Matter, you're my enemy because you seek to destroy that which I love and that which I took an oath to support and defend. Fight's on, and I'm ready.
Well, I want to say personally, thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. It's a perfect way to have a discussion on these topics. It's sensible, it's logical, it's rational. And I don't think that 10, 15 years ago, anyone would have ever imagined that some of these activities are happening. And it just is weakening the nation. We're already struggling financially. It's an effort to topple us over. And so we have to really make a choice, get out of the emotionalism of it, get past the fear that you're offending people and speak up and just talk about the points that are actually very important, as opposed to focusing in on your insecurity of whether you're racist or not. I mean, come on, people, we have been living together, and no one can tell me otherwise. I've lived near the city a majority of my life. I have seen people have normal interactions. I don't see this extreme racism that everyone's talking about. I'm not, in a secluded area. And so I think this keeps on being fabricated, agitated, and brought in to create divisions. And people have to see that. I mean, every single soul is divine. Every single soul has a purpose. And each one of us have had different experiences. And a person who is black today was white in another lifetime. Person who's white today has been black in another lifetime. We've been in every culture of existence. None of this makes any sense to me. But this is part of understanding, and let's grow and move on. But I appreciate some people that bring it back to reality. Here is a situation where this is back in Chaz, and of course some things have evolved since then. But I just want to show you. Here is
the hearts and minds of our enemies.
This is a another incident where they thought that they had the right to go into someone's private property and start tearing it down.
We did not start this war. This is a war against intelligence, and they attacked first.
You did tell me you are a Seattle local. What is the
So I'm going to go forward. And so this...
Your council members, Kashama Sawant.
These people don't have any police.
What do you do?
What are you doing?
So they just started tearing it down. It was like, what?
And they started lighting stuff on fire, started to take stuff. There was money, of course, and stuff started getting looted. And all we did was kept it very peaceful. We came in here, got them out, pulled them outside, and all we were doing was asking questions. Were we armed? Yes. To be fair, we don't know what to expect going into this. And that's the only thing that happened. And then, of course, he wouldn't cooperate with us, so we couldn't, search him, couldn't do any of that. Because if he didn't want it, we weren't going to do it.
Just a reminder, folks, this is a no-cop zone. These people have to do this themselves. They have no choice.
Yes. And so we waited. We waited until he was willing to let us do that, and he never got to that point. And then he got to the point where, everybody started coming down here, and at that point, again, I can't tie him to anything. I don't know. Nobody knows anything. But I do know that it wasn't worth the cost. It wasn't worth whatever he was able to take or whatever he decided to light on fire. It's not worth us sitting there trying to get that out of him whenever we could have easily just let him go.
You're with them, right?
So basically we just call it, let it go, and then now here we are.
Sure. And then what is maybe a message to the mayor of Seattle that this is a no-cop zone, so folks like yourself can't really protect themselves? I mean, at least you guys have arms, but there's some folks in this community that don't have arms. Maybe what's your message to the mayor of Seattle about this no-cop zone and the situation that's going on with local businesses?
It's not about politics. It's about your people.
It's about the change of the hearts of American people. That's all it is, man. The people need to change. Every single one of these people's hearts needs to change, period. End of statement. And our hearts are broken for this nation. That's all there is to it.
And the fact that we have to come out here and do this, it sucks. It sucks that we have to do this. It sucks that I look at my friends and my family that are part of the police force, and they worry more. I'm worried more about them than anything else, and they aren't even allowed in these spots. This needs to get taken over. It needs to be under control, and it is not under control. I can't tie anything. I can't tie the gentleman that came in here tonight to do this. I can't tie him to anything, any of the protests. I can't tie him to anything. I'm not saying that he's part of it, but what I am saying is the fact there's no cop zones. That is disturbing, and it is going to ruin this state.
It's going to ruin the United States. And you just can't exist without someone who is trained, who is being monitored, who has, certain protocol, who will be held responsible. That's what the police force is. You just cannot have vigilantism, because if you happen to be on the wrong side of the fence and they don't like you, there's nothing fair in that. And so you need a neutral party that is going to come in and be able to keep things peaceful, and that those that are out of control will be handled. And so a lot of people say, well, oh, I have to worry about, the police all the time. Well, if you're not committing crimes, you don't have to worry about anything. I've never been arrested. I've traveled throughout the country. If you're, everyone gets pulled over, but you have a discussion. Either you understand or you deliberately breaking the law, or you have something else going on. But if you're not committing any crimes, you don't have any problem with the police. So the ones that are most vocal, because the squeaky wheel gets whatever they want, and they're telling everyone, oh, the police are brutal. Well, what were you doing that made them brutal? And I'm not saying there aren't bad police officers, but in all honesty, they're pretty rational. If you're not in one of these places and you're not looting and you're not, committing an offense against someone's personal property or government property, or, in any other location, you're not assaulting people out in the middle of the street, then you have nothing to worry about. Then the police officers are your friend, because when you need help, they show up. People that have been in domestic violence, the police officer is the only way that they got out alive. How can you take that from children, from single mothers, from all of these other people that have needs? So it's a very narcissistic, selfish agenda, and one that is in support of the criminal, because technically the people that don't want the police there, because they want to be able to do what they want, which means impose on other people's freedoms, impose on other people's properties. A license to commit crime. I don't know why anyone is supporting this. It's shocking to me. This gentleman, Forbidden Knowledge, wrote an interesting article, and there's a video here. Whose hand is behind the Antifa coup? Same hand as 4 years ago. George Webb does a little victory lap in a short video in which he reminds us that he was on the trail of this coup 3 years ago, following an encrypted BlackBerry communications network of 45 members of the DNC, who he and his investigative partners identified as being a part of a covert weapons shipping and caching program. They have a whole bunch of weapons. These people include the DNC IT tech support employee and suspected Pakistani intelligence asset Imran Alwan, former DNC chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Senator Nancy Pelosi, Congressman Adam Schiff, and former DNC Deputy Chair Keith Ellison. Webb believes that the Kristallnachts we've seen of looting and arson will be violently ramped up with the introduction of weapons and explosives modeled after the Operation Gladio. He says a Gladio C is what is coming. Sybil Edmonds is correct. I do see this happening. It's going to be a combination of bioweapons along with probably conventional weapons, along with probably explosives, along with probably other forms of irregular warfare. Well, we already know about the bioweapon as COVID-19, and we also see conventional weapons, non-conventional weapons, explosives, fireworks going on all the time. People are complaining about to mask criminal activity. It's interesting how they use all the symbologies of liberty to get what they want. The coup is coming. I don't think anyone doubts that now. I think everyone understands it's going to be a second wave of COVID, a bioweapon attack to neutralize the population. But then there is also going to be this violent armed opposition as well to gain these footholds to challenge Trump. I'm going to go a step further. They're no longer challenging Trump. They are challenging the way of life in the United States for everyone. For everyone. anyone who actually believes that the Democratic Party is playing a game back and forth with Trump, and that's all this is very much mistaken. This is no longer a game. This is no longer over voting. They are attacking our livelihood. They are attacking the way many people who have worked very hard in their lives, and they just keep stripping and taking money away from support, from protections. Okay, I'm going to go further. They're going to let America go on fire until the election in order to overthrow Trump. The real question is what are these Democrats trying to distract us with? Many of them have been committing numerous crimes. Many of them have been in office for a very long time. Many of them are hiding behind agendas like this with certain lifestyles and other issues that really should be taken a look at. And the American public needs to start focusing in on the Democrats who are actually cooperating, orchestrating, in the destruction of the United States. And I don't care if you want to call them Democrat or whatever office that they call themselves, this is deliberate. In the states like in Washington, you can already see this partnership between the Governor Inslee about not doing anything about the takeover, not doing anything about the takeover of this group in Seattle. She's done absolutely nothing. People have died for her self-righteous cause, mockingly saying this is the summer of love, letting people's businesses get destroyed in her self-righteous, unbelievable, narcissistic behavior of wanting to prove some kind of point that she can help destroy the United States by starting with her corner of the world and where she is orchestrating this. And I do predict that this group in Seattle, these soy boys, let's call them, will be supplanted by a much more radical and armed group. So starting off with seemingly innocent people that want to protest, and then a more radical and armed group whom we may not know, very likely won't even be from the United States. It's an easy takeover, and they are orchestrating all of this. And as Jeffrey Prather says, when the news really heavily armed shadow government comes in, the soy boys are discarded, and they're saying it's a shadow government. I think it's, Antifa technically is not the U.S. If not, some cases very seriously hurt or worse, killed if they offer any resistance to the replacements that are coming in. They're going to kill anyone. We're waiting too long to say anything, allowing the charade to go on, but it's not a charade, it's a carefully planned, orchestrated idea of upheaval and the deconstruction of the United States at the expense of all the innocent people. Politicians go at it with each other and think this is a competitive game, like you're 5 years old. But look at the cost of all of these people that have lost money in their business. It's already oppressed because of COVID-19. This really needs to stop. And then he goes on to talk about how this is, that's the next thing to look at in these places. Again, look for the 1 to 5 corridor. Look for these drug route corridors, these heavy liberals areas, along with the key Hells Angels rat line of 1 to 5. Gladio is the key word that was used in Europe for the CIA creating these weapons caches in Eastern Europe. The idea was that you'd be able to use these weapons and explosives to create disruption inside of Soviet Union, and then eventually there'd be some D-Day where you have a secret message go out and everyone would go to their gun caches, attack simultaneously, and you would give your enemy a warning. They talked a lot about this about Gladio. Those same techniques were used by Fethullah Gulen in Turkey in these radical groups like the PKK, the Kurdistan Workers' Party, which is a funder and trainer. Americans never look at what's going on in the rest of the world. They only look at the United States, unfortunately, and they don't learn, because what's happening in these other places is what they bring in here, and then they're confused. They don't know what's going on, and this is why. So this Kurdistan Workers' Party, which is a funder and a trainer of Antifa, to do this sort of covert warfare where you cache the weapons, you do secret training missions, and then all of a sudden you spring a whole psychological and political, physiological campaign. At the same time, you're calling your warriors. This is known as a color revolution. We talked a lot about it on our channel. William Engdahl talked a lot about organizations which have done this in coordination with NATO, a company called Otpor, based in Sarajevo. We've talked about Antifa just being a black revolution like Ukraine's 2004 Orange Revolution, or the 2011 Arab Spring, black being the color of the revolution here in the United States. It's all the same. We've talked about the weapons caching, the front companies or the front religious organizations that were used to cache the weapons, like Keith Ellison's cache near Minneapolis. Interesting, in Minneapolis. Like the cache in Indiana, with the Andre Carson being again a BlackBerry holder, Muslim Brotherhood holder at the Islamic Society of North America. We went to Fethullah Gulen's organization in Saylorsburg, Pennsylvania. Spent 2 days there watching material being moved in and out, both at night and during the day, large and heavy military. This is happening in Pennsylvania. So we went to some of these caching sites. We've talked about the programs of warfare. When these caches are removed or moved to operationalize for covert war in Libya and Syria. We've looked at the generals that are involved. General Grange, his wife Cindy Grange, the port of Norfolk. We've gone to different ports, like the port of Canaveral, where there's long-term deals with the United Arab Emirates. For this, how people like Sybil Edmonds are now calling this Gladio Sea, just like we called it 3 years ago. And this is an interesting article. And then they start getting into probably where the real problem is, Pizzagate. And interesting how the Hells Angels and everything were brought in. And he goes into that. I mean, it's a very, very interesting article to read, and I'm going to have this attached for you to read it because you can see it goes on for quite a bit. But anyhow, something more to think about. Operation Gladio is the code name for clandestine stay-behind operations of armed resistance that was planned by the Western Union and subsequently by NATO for potential Warsaw Pact invasions and conquest of Europe, what they're doing over here. Although Gladio specifically refers to the Italian branch of the NATO stay-behind organizations, Operation Gladio is used as an informal name for all of them. Stay-behind operations were prepared in many NATO member countries and neutral countries. Late 60s, 1980s. The role of the CIA in Gladio or extent of these activities during the Cold War and responsible for terrorist attacks. perpetuated in Italy during the years of lead. Okay, so this is, he also referred to the Kristallnacht. This is against the Jews, program against the Jews, carried out by the SA paramilitary forces and civilians through the Nazi Germany in 9 to 10 November of 1938. The German authorities looked on without intervening. The Kristallnacht means crystal night, comes from the shards of broken glass that are littered in the streets, with the window of Jewish-owned stores, buildings, and synagogues were smashed. The pretext for the attacks was the assassination of the German diplomat Ernst von Rath by Herschel Greenspan, a 17-year-old German-born Polish Jew living in Paris. So, and then it goes on to discuss the concentration camps and all the other things that happened afterwards. And, you can see that this is the modus operandi, and this is the purpose of, reference. History is crucial. That's why they want to get rid of it, because then we can use history as a reference point to see exactly what the agenda is, the type of thinking, the modus operandi, and why they're behaving this way and which group it's coming from. So Black Lives Matter is using Nazi tactics. Seattle police are pushing people out of Chaz, July 1st, 2020. Finally?
Sure exactly what we're doing, but yeah.
You're going to see that there's police coming in. There's a guy yelling out, "We're winning, we're winning." In some ways, he's right. They've won. You'll see how. It's usually by money.
Good Lord.
Immediately, or you will be subject to arrest. Do it now.
What I'm trying to understand is why couldn't they have done this earlier?
Officers over here. And then we've got some others that are securing the perimeter in the back. I am guessing there's probably a couple hundred police officers here.
And that's it. That's all they needed, right? They're just like traveling through, looking around. At some point they show, they're
hanging out here, watching this, which I don't find very exciting. I don't think looking into.
All right, so
and you can see by the layers of paint, it's been graffitied over more than once. So let's go right here. Yeah, looks like they've got 6 guys down here.
You can see that, and at some point you'll see, there's trying to cover.
Yeah, that's the right way, but at this point in time, I just don't care.
Los Angeles City Council votes to cut LAPD budget by $150 million. How is that fair? For the amount of population in LA that had nothing to do with any of this, did not contribute to it, are not racist. Los Angeles City Council on Wednesday approves of $150 million cut in LAPD budget for the next fiscal year to move that followed the activists' mounting calls to defund the police. The council voted 12-2 with the councilman John Lee and Joe Buscaino voting in opposition to the decision. The year's budget process for the Los Angeles, unlike any other because of the coronavirus pandemic, That's right. There's a lot of money to pay for all the loss, people not working, people being sick, in lockdown, and now no police. Wednesday, the City Council voted on financial adjustments to a spending plan that is already in effect as the fiscal year begins July 1st. So the rest of the population has to suffer, has to be vulnerable to those that feel they have a right to go in and take people's homes, to attack and destroy people's businesses. Sad, Democratic leaders struggling to enforce lockdowns after getting rid of all the police. Democratic leaders sure are in a pickle. They are really trying to be tyrants and enact a police state with their COVID-19 orders and lockdowns. But oops, they just defunded the police and now don't have any police officers to enforce their orders. Obviously, sarcastically, they say, oops-a-daisy. We may have defunded the police slightly too early, admitted New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. Maybe we should have welded everybody into their homes and then fired all the police officers. Did he say that? Maybe we should have welded everybody into their homes and then fired all the police officers. And you tell me that Trump's bad? This man just made a statement referencing mass murder. Welding people in their homes. I know China was doing that. You have to be really careful with the timing on these things, you know. Someone then busted into his press conference and stole his watch. Police, arrest that man, he cried before realizing what he was saying. California Governor Gavin Newsom just ordered everyone to wear masks and told almost all the restaurants in the state to close, but he's running into this similar roadblock as the major cities like LA and San Francisco have already begun defunding their police departments. Oh, look, let's just back up and look at the science here, Newsom said. We'll keep the police, but they can only enforce masks and stop people from skateboarding and stuff. Not when they're stealing from people. But they won't be able to use force, no guns, of course. I think he has police protecting him, as do all the wealthy and the elite who are advocating this because they want to see everyone else get destroyed while they're protected. They'll just stop people with their words and the citizens disagree, the police will authorize to ask nicely a second time. This is what he's saying that's going to happen. Meanwhile, many Republican leaders are speaking out against tyranny while pushing for the police to have more money so they can buy more tanks and killer robots. It's going to go from one extreme to another. Not the smartest, not the sharpest tool in the shed. I don't know. Maybe something is happening to these dictators of the Democratic Party, but it's not right. Here's some more sarcasm too, but it's, you know, right on point.
Anarchist thugs of Chaz continue to hold hostage 6 city blocks of downtown Seattle with a list of demands that includes abolishing the police, abolishing prisons, racial segregation of the city's hospitals, free healthcare, and free college, because why not? Can we just stop for a moment and recognize how hilarious these losers are? Because literally everything the radical left has condemned about America is now happening with impunity in the woke nation of Chaz. Stop and frisk is racist, the left told us. And yet, when you enter the nation of Chaz, you are subjected to stop and frisk by armed guards at checkpoints. A border wall is a monument to hate, the radical left claimed. But the first thing these radical leftist, anarchist thugs did after taking Seattle hostage was build a wall to keep people out. You can't make this up. Firearms are bad, the left proclaimed. Just say no to armed guards at schools. But now, armed guards are literally patrolling the nation of Chaz. Armed guards with firearms. And remember when the left howled that IDs disproportionately disadvantage minorities? Well, in the country of Chaz, armed guards are IDing anybody who comes across their border. And as for justice, vigilante justice is injustice, the left cried, especially in the wake of the shooting of Ahmaud Arbery, and they were right about that. But guess how Chaz is now ruling their autonomous zone? With mobs of vigilantes who accused a man of stealing, almost beat him to death, except that he managed to escape, only to realize later that he did not steal anything. The American criminal justice system is terrorism, the radical left claims. But apparently, vigilante mobs is the criminal justice system the radical left prefers. And the best for last, we are teetering on the brink of dictatorship thanks to Trump, CNN's Don Lemon warned. But you can't make this up. The radical leftist utopia of Chaz is now literally ruled by a warlord. A dictator, an actual warlord. Did you know we even had warlords in America? Finally,
yes, we do.
Even as the comrades of Chaz topple statues of Christopher Columbus across the country, accusing Columbus of being an imperialist white man who stole land from natives and people of color, what are these Chaz thugs doing? They've driven business owners, which I assume includes black business owners, away from their businesses and have declared the area to be their own. What is that, if not exactly what they condemned? This is who radical leftists are, fascist, authoritarian thugs who also happen to be the biggest, most ridiculous hypocrites on planet Earth.
There we go.
And
that was Liz Wheeler.
As the lawless anarchist thugs of
and the article is Chaz thugs exposed doing everything they condemn America for. The hypocrisy is unbelievable. I just want to do a quick reminder that the United States is not comprised of just two groups of people, black and white, but it's actually, take a look at this, by ethnicity, because whites are not just one group of people. They actually represent many different nations. And on top of that, there are many others that are not included, especially the Native Americans who actually did own this land. So, or some contend that they still do. But either way, they're not the ones that we're hearing from here. And people should be listening to them a little bit more. But getting down to this by ethnicity or place of origin, we have people from African, Albanian, Amish, Angolan, Antiguan, Arab. These are all different cultures that are living in the United States, who all should be equally represented. Argentinian, Armenian. Just a reminder, Armenian people were, went through terrible hardship, and you hardly ever hear from them. And they were almost wiped out as a people. Asian, Assyrian, Asturian, Australian, Azerbaijani, Bahamian, Bangladeshi, Barbadian, Basque, Belarusian, Belgian, Belizean, Beninese, Berber, Bermudian, Bolivian. I mean, we can go on and on. Cajun, Bulgarian, Cambodian, Cameroonian, Canadian. Unbelievable. It's Chinese, Coptic, Cossack, Dutch, Croatian, Cuban, Czech, Danish, Dominican, Hawaiian, Ecuadorian, Egyptian, Philippine. I mean, the list goes on and on. Greek, Italian, Guyanese, Haitian, Honduran, Hungarian, Icelandic, Indian, Indo-Caribbean, Indonesian, Iranian, Polish, Peruvian, Paraguayan. I can go on and on and on. Look at them. From people from Luxembourg, Malaysia, Maori, Mexican, Moroccan, Native American, Hawaiian, Korean, Kenyan, Japanese, Irish, Portuguese, Romanian. This is America. It's not just two groups. When people decide that they're making a movement, that they're taking large sums of money, they need to think about who they're taking from. You're going to get your way, but in all consciousness, do you really think it's right? Do you think that you're the only ones that suffered? Every single group here came to the United States because of some kind of military. Not every single one, but majority of them came because of military unrest in their nations. And they were hoping that the United States would be a place that they could have peace and raise their family. Some came through poverty. My family came, I don't know, around the, well after any of the slave issue happened, probably on Ellis Island, when the Italians and the Irish all came over. So, and that includes many of these other people. Some of them just came over maybe in 2000, and then the 80s, the 70s. Had nothing to do with any of these issues. We have to get past this word right here. The world doesn't evolve around one. And like I said, you can get your way, but ultimately the soul is going to have to make accommodations for what is going on here. Here is something else that Alan West, again, is brilliant, and he makes some interesting comments.
These athletes, Alan West, and these coaches and these commissioners, all now taking a knee to Black Lives Matter.
Well, again, it's very appalling that you would have these corporations and businesses, and you have these sports franchises like the National Football League that are cowering and acquiescing and surrendering to a Marxist mob, which is what Black Lives Matter is. You know, this past week I did a video in response to what Brett Favre said in his comparative analysis that Colin Kaepernick would go down as a hero just the same as Pat Tillman. Pat Tillman was a man who quit the NFL and decided to join the Army, enlist in the Army, become an infantryman, an airborne ranger, and was, sadly killed in a friendly fire incident in combat in Afghanistan. Now, how do you make that comparison to someone like Colin Kaepernick? The only reason why Brett Favre does that, the only reason why someone like Drew Brees apologizes or Roger Goodell gets on his knees, the only reason why you have the head of Chick-fil-A talking about white people need to shine the shoes of black people, is because they don't have their courage to stand up and say what needs to be said. They continue to believe that you can appease a mob. The mob will never be happy. And the leader
needing to have courage. And the other point is the mob will never be happy. It doesn't matter how much money they get. If you have people who are discontent, if you have people that are here just for the agenda, the high, the adrenaline of being able to force power on others, it's an insatiable power. It's like a drug. They're not going to be happy. People who are dissatisfied could get billions of dollars and still not be happy. Maybe that's the problem of the Soros group, is discontentment with abundance, and everyone else is suffering for it.
of Black Lives Matter said they will burn the system down. You cannot negotiate, and you cannot meet someone like that on an ideological field and believe you can have reasonable discourse.
Isn't it time that those of us who embrace this country, revere this country, who believe in this country, that we get behind our police officers, that we get behind the National Guard, that we get behind politicians, like President Trump, who are trying to figure out how to deal with this, and let them know, while there may be those people, but there's 250 to 300 million of us who take a different point of view, and we love this country. We have people who, in our families, who have fought for this country. We work every day to make this country work in our own little role in our own little lives, and we're sick and tired of this. So we stand behind the cops, and we stand behind the military, and we stand behind the commander-in-chief. Don't you think we should speak out more?
No, we have to speak out more. And when I think about my own family, you know, my father went out and fought for this country in World War II. He was a corporal in the Army. My older brother fought for this country as a Marine Corps infantryman in Vietnam. I did 22 years, and my nephew is continuing to serve right now. My father-in-law served 2 tours in Vietnam, 24 years. He's buried at Arlington National Cemetery. That has nothing to do with being black, white, Hispanic, Asian, or whatever. It's about being an American. It's about standing up and taking that oath to support and defend the Constitution. But this all brings me back to that great quote by Thomas Paine when he said, "These are the times which try men's souls, when the summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will in this crisis shrink from their duties. But to those who will make a stand, they will deserve the admiration of all men and women." So this is a gut check moment for Americans. We know who the opposition truly are, what they stand for, what they believe in, and what their goals and objectives are. And so either we're going to be a summer soldier, sunshine patriot, or we're going to be those people that stand, as Thomas Jefferson said, in matters of style, swim with the current. In matters of principle, stand like a rock.
So what do you make of these?
That was a great point. And to stand for what's right. And I think that, you know, we're getting scared because if we had the Antifa come in under another guise, they looked for the vulnerability and the fear of offending or stepping over on people because of race. And a lot of people, like I said, are, you know, they don't see the difference. Their friendships, many people have been successful and are, you know, kind of have been role models. The people in the Black community have excelled. They've done some tremendous things, and I think nobody had any issues with that. And those that struggled, people also understood that they struggled, just like many others and many other immigrants that have come into this country. And it obviously it was more of a vulnerability, and there's a lot of guilt. And I don't know where the guilt is coming from. It's probably it's part of the programming as well, where we need to just embrace each other as humans and not get into this vulnerability and not allow someone to take a foothold through propaganda to manipulate the situation. Kira's, so they started clearing. I think I had some more video here and kind of give you a perspective. There's an aerial view, and you see it. Finally, the police presence moving in. We're going to have all these links, by the way, if you want to review them. So, finally we can say, all right, so that's done, but it's not done. Seattle, for weeks, officials in Seattle have been grappling with what to do about the protests there. And that's set up near downtown. That became the scene of several shootings in a war of words between city leaders and President Trump, supported as an exercise in the populist democracy, or shut it down. A game. People died. People's businesses got destroyed. People financially are in ruin. And now the police are in jeopardy. This is negligence. This is fear. This is non-communication, and this is non-understanding. And if they think this is going to make the world a better place, I mean, someone mentioned to me that some of these young people that are involved are upset because they want to have sit at home and get paid. They want free college. They don't want to have any student loans, and I understand that student loans are difficult. They want health care, some basic things, but maybe not. But they're doing all of this. It's giving another message, people. It doesn't sound right. And for those of you that are not from the United States, I'm sure you can relate to some of these issues. Seattle police began making arrests in the CHOP zone. This was on July 1st.
Yeah, we're right in the thick of it right now, guys. This is 12th and Pine. We are right across the street from the East Precinct, right on the corner. This is the core of this CHOP Chaz zone. Police are pushing right now. You can see, a large contingent of bike officers, folks in gear here. They have just pushed in. They've taken half of this intersection, and you can see where those tents are. Pushed into those tents. They are going through them, clearing people out. You can hear those chants, "Move back." I have seen pepper spray deployed already this morning. We just watched that happen right there under the stoplight. And yeah, they...
Mike and 12, okay? We stay there. You're going around.
Yeah.
Guys, get out of here.
You want us to go that way or you want us to go this way? Okay. This way? Yes, sir. SPD is clearing up from Seattle police to reclaim CHOP from these protesters. You can see they're shining some bright spotlights from a truck back there, a SWAT vehicle. And again, this is the core of this occupied zone during here. The East Precinct right here on our left. Mark, if you can look left and take a look at the East Precinct there, that people have been occupying the space in front of here for the last few weeks. Police are pushing in. We don't know a lot of details of what will happen once they push people out, but we have been told, as you heard, police are telling us to clear out as well, to head south here on 12th, and pepper spray deployed just a couple of minutes ago. You know, I would say we're probably looking at, just on this edge here, a dozen, maybe 2 dozen protesters. Mark, walk with me, okay? Precinct where there were, hundreds and hundreds of people in a line against the line of officers.
Right, and Michael, what you can't see right now, but you folks at home can see now, a split box here in the upper right-hand corner. Another view closer to the Seattle Police East Precinct, where even more officers who are not confronting protesters are ready to move in when needed. And as you can hear here in Michael's audio there is definitely a loud presence by protesters pushing back against police, and this is to be expected. Anytime a police officer would just walk through the CHOP area, they would be heckled and taunted from all directions. But as Michael just mentioned, by a factor of 10-fold this morning, police have protesters outnumbered. And as they move through here, they're also, from what I'm seeing in Michael's shot, removing tents and removing those barriers as they move forward, clear a space, move forward. This, of course, all orchestrated by police well ahead of time here. The goal, no doubt, is to take back the Seattle Police East Precinct. And right in the background there, you see the Chief Best up there in the right-hand corner of your screen, Chief Carmen Best also on scene. But on the left box there, behind those barriers, behind the people, those boarded up windows, that's the Seattle Police East Precinct. It's a huge building right there, dead center of the CHOP. And you can see police on basically all sides of that East Precinct now, fortifying, working their way back to try to reclaim the East Precinct. It has not been an easy move because protesters have been so far outnumbering police taking a very sort of backseat stance to letting the CHOP play out in recent days. And as we mentioned a few moments ago, it was June the 8th when the CHOP was basically created. They called it the Chaz at the time. And that was when Seattle police essentially abandoned that East Precinct, essentially determining it was not worth their time to continue pushing, Michelle, the protesters out, but rather just let things develop on their own. But here we are, Michelle, again, 3 weeks later, police trying to take it back.
So it's been about 3 weeks. 3 weeks of a very big message across the United States and across the world that it looks like the United States was out of control.
Their discretion, remove or arrest individuals who are trespassing in the Cal Anderson Park area in violation of the park's closure and who... Yep, it's getting funky out here.
In 3 minutes.
Yep.
So just the same thing, a little bit more
View them on the what you call the
perspective. I heard
might just
someone
be
was
joining
upset.
over here. What happened was maybe about an hour ago, whatever time that first tweet was, is when the police started to first give an order to disperse, start to wake up and do things like that. Or they've been pushed out over here. We want Eric. Let me see if I can talk to Eric.
So, you know, as you can see, I mean, it just looks like it's chaotic. But like I said, it's something that we thought, you know, most Americans felt like it should have been taken care of a long time ago or right away. Should have never been established. Is the mayor planning on paying all of these people personally for their loss of their property and all of the stolen items? Probably not. The other thing that you know, while she was gloating about how wonderful this is, the summer of love that she called it, she neglected to inform some of the people that their children had died. And to this day, I think there was some articles out there of a gentleman saying he can't understand. It's been 2 weeks that his son was dead and nobody contacted him. And you know, it's extremely negligent. Anyone that is in political office and behaving this way has a lot of explaining to do, in my opinion. And so I believe that's about it. And I just want to say thank you so much for listening. I was ranting and raving, but I think for legitimate reasons. And I hope that the message becomes better. But I think putting things back into perspective, I think we all need to speak out, not just myself. Someone said you inspired me to create videos. Maybe I'll create another video. And I hope you do. I hope you start talking and vocalizing about some of these things that you feel are wrong, because God knows those that are perpetuating the propaganda of Antifa and perpetuating the agendas of the way that the government is using and manipulating race tensions, that you know, people should speak out and be sensible about it. And you know, it's about love, about caring, but it's also about being responsible. Our absence is giving license to some of these things that are happening, and also defunding the police is probably going to be one of the greatest mistakes that could possibly happen. There's friends of mine that live in California that they're already, you know, in a state of anxiety. They don't know what's happening. Hearing fireworks all night, they're not getting a good night's sleep, and also the streets are not safe. And so like I said, the governor walking around with his shielded police staff and wants everyone else to be vulnerable, everyone else to be in a position to get killed, people that are somebody's parents, somebody's children. That's none of this is acceptable, and they are criminals, in my opinion. So I'm going to leave it there. I encourage you all to speak out. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you for supporting the channel. And we want peace for the planet. We want peace for everybody, and abundance, and all the things that we need. And the universe knows how to assist in helping us and protecting us during these times. So thank you. Have a good day.